Every night her body produced milk for her child. But someone or something was taking it first. And when she finally caught it in the act, she wished she never had. The house was always quiet after midnight. Only the faint ticking of the wall clock and the soft hum of the refrigerator broke the silence. Mira would lie awake, listening to her baby's gentle breathing beside her crib. Every night she woke up around the same time, just after 2. Not because the baby cried, but because something felt wrong. Her shirt would be damp, her chest lighter. The milk was gone. But the baby still slept, her tiny lips closed, her stomach flat. At first Mira thought she was imagining it. Perhaps the baby had fed without her remembering. Sleep deprivation, she told herself. Made sense. Until she started marking the bottles. She pumped milk during the day, labeled the ounces, sealed them tight in the fridge. Each morning one would be missing. No one else lived in the house. Her husband was away on a construction site, miles from the city. Only Mira and the baby were there. And yet, every morning, the bottles vanished. She started locking the refrigerator. Then the milk from her body began to disappear again. Her breasts felt drained before dawn. A sticky, sweet scent lingered on her nightgown. She began to wake up earlier, pretending to sleep. The air would grow colder around 2 a.m. The curtains barely moved, but the shadow on the wall would. It would stretch from the corner near the crib. A low sound filled the room, like someone breathing through water. Myra's throat tightened. She could not move. She could only watch as the shadow leaned closer to the crib. The baby stirred, whimpered once, and went still. Then, something unseen brushed against Myra's chest. Her body tingled, like something warm and alive was drawing from her. Her eyes widened, tears forming as she felt the pull. The shadow grew darker, taking shape. Thin arms, a hollow chest, a mouth that never fully opened. Its face hovered over her. It had no eyes. Just 2 dark hollows that reflected her own trembling body. The air smelled of spoiled milk. And then, as suddenly as it came, it slipped back toward the crib. The baby slept on untouched. The milk was gone again. When morning came, Mira searched the room. No footprints. No marks. Only one strange stain on the crib's wooden edge. A milky white dried in streaks. She burned her nightgown that day. But the next night she woke to the same cold air. The same faint sound of slurping from the corner. And a whisper, low and gurgling, near her ear. Not yours to feed anymore. Her heart pounded, sweat rolling down her temples. She turned her head slowly toward the crib. The baby's blanket was moving. Not from breathing. From underneath. The fabric rose and fell, something shifting inside. Something that was not her child. Mira reached out with a shaking hand. And froze when she felt warmth, slick and alive, pushing back against her palm. She screamed but no sound came. Her voice was trapped in her throat. The shadow lifted from under the blanket, dripping, pale, and thin like a starving infant. Its mouth glistened. And her baby lay still beside it, eyes wide open. The creature turned its head slowly toward Mira, milk dripping from its lips. She could not breathe. Her own chest began to ache, painfully empty again. The thing crawled closer, its bones cracking with every movement. It whispered again, "Mother, I am still hungry." Myra's body refused to move. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her limbs felt paralyzed beneath the weight of terror. The thing dragged itself across the floorboards, leaving faint milky smears that glistened under the weak moonlight. Its movements were jerky, wrong, like a newborn learning to crawl, but faster, hungrier. The baby lay motionless beside it, her little arm twisted at an unnatural angle. Myra's breath hitched. Her throat burned. She wanted to scream her daughter's name, but the sound only trembled behind her teeth. The creature tilted its head, bones popping like cracking branches. Its hollow sockets fixed on her chest. Then it smiled. The skin around its lips tore as it did, stretching too far, too wide. Something inside that mouth moved. Tiny tongues, dozens of them twitching like worms. It lifted a trembling arm and reached toward her, fingers long and gray, nails sharp as splinters. Mira stumbled backward, hitting the wall. The crib rattled. The baby's toy mobile began to spin on its own, the soft tune playing slowly, brokenly. One note kept repeating, high and shrill like a distant scream. The creature paused, as if the sound hurt it. Its head jerked toward the mobile. That was when Mira moved. She lunged forward, snatched her baby from the crib, and stumbled toward the door. The creature shrieked, an awful wet sound that made the air shake. Every light in the house flickered. Mira ran down the hallway, clutching the lifeless body against her chest. Tears blurred her vision. Behind her, the shadow followed, stretching across the walls like black veins. It whispered with 1,000 voices. "Do not take her. She's mine. You fed me. You called me." Mira burst into the kitchen and grabbed the nearest thing, salt, left from the evening's dinner. She threw it behind her. The air hissed. The shadow convulsed, retreating for a second before pressing forward again. She reached the front door and yanked it open. Cold night air hit her face, sharp and metallic. The wind howled through the trees, carrying faint cries, baby cries. Dozens of them. Everywhere. All around the house. Mira froze on the doorstep. Her eyes widened. In the darkness beyond the porch, shapes began to appear. Small crawling swaying shapes, pale like the one inside. Their mouths open, drooling, whispering her name. Mira! She backed away, clutching the baby tighter. The infant's body was cold now. Her lips slightly blue. But her eyes were open, watching. Then slowly they blinked. The baby's voice came out in a rasp. "Why did you stop feeding us, Mother?" The world tilted. Mira screamed and stumbled back into the house, slamming the door. She locked it, breathing hard, staring down at the thing in her arms. It smiled up at her, small teeth glinting where there should have been none. And from outside, dozens of tiny fists began to bang against the walls, soft, rhythmic, like a lullaby gone wrong. The refrigerator door creaked open by itself. The bottles inside rattled. The milk inside began to bubble, to pulse. And a voice, deep, liquid, ancient, whispered from the kitchen. "You cannot keep what you offered." The baby's head tilted, eyes rolling back white. Her tiny mouth opened wide, wider than her face should allow. And from the darkness of her throat, Mira saw movement. Something crawling upward. Something wet, pale, and hungry. She dropped the baby. It hit the floor with a soft thud. But the crying did not stop. Now it came from the walls, from the ceiling, from inside her. Her chest began to ache again. Pressure, heat, then pain so sharp she gasped. Her nightgown turned wet. Not milk this time. Something thicker. She looked down and saw small, bony fingers pressing out from under her skin. Her scream tore through the night like glass breaking underwater. The fingers pressed harder, stretching her skin in sickening ripples. Mira fell to her knees, clutching her chest, gasping for air that refused to come. The pressure inside her grew unbearable, like something alive was clawing from within. She could feel each tiny nail scratching against her ribs. Her body shook violently. The air around her thickened, filled with the sour scent of curdled milk and rot. The baby, no, the thing, sat on the floor in front of her, head tilted, eyes blank and black. Its mouth opened slowly, a low gurgle bubbling from deep inside. It raised a hand, and from the tips of its small fingers, white liquid dripped and sizzled as it touched the floor. Mira crawled backward, her spine hitting the wall. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her chest, trying to stop whatever was moving beneath her skin. "Please," she gasped, tears streaming down her face. "Please stop." The creature's lips twisted into something like a smile. "Mother," it said, voice layered. One infantile, one ancient, both echoing in her mind. "You were chosen to feed us. To bring us back." Mira shook her head violently. "No. You are not real. You are not my child." But even as she said it, something inside her shifted. A cold understanding crept into her mind, something she had tried to bury for months. Before her daughter was born, she had prayed. Not to God. Not to anything she could name. In the sleepless nights of her pregnancy, when her husband was gone and the baby's heartbeat faltered, she had whispered desperate words into the dark. She had begged anyone, anything to let her child live. And something had answered. A dream, she had thought. A whisper in the dark that said, "You will have her. But you will feed us too." The sound of cracking bone pulled her back to the present. The fingers beneath her skin were pushing harder. A small hand broke through, wet and pale, clutching at the air. Mira screamed, her voice raw. Blood mixed with milk spilled down her chest in thick streams. The baby creature on the floor began to laugh, the sound high and broken, like a lullaby played backward. The walls of the house seemed to breathe. The wallpaper bulged, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. From every corner, faint whispers rose. Hundreds of tiny voices murmuring in unison. "Feed us! Feed us! Feed us!" Mira tried to crawl toward the door again, but the floor was slick with milk and blood. Her palms slipped. Behind her, something heavy thudded onto the wooden boards. She turned her head slowly and saw it. A small, slick figure, no bigger than a cat, pulled itself free from her chest wound. Its skin was white, translucent, veins blue beneath the surface. Its mouth opened wide as it gasped for air, making wet, sucking sounds. Then it cried just like a newborn. Myra's body convulsed. She crawled backward, leaving streaks of red and white behind her. But before she could stand, another movement rippled beneath her ribs. Another one was coming. She could feel it. Her mind fractured between terror and disbelief. Her vision blurred. The room swayed, every shadow alive and watching. She looked toward the crib. The thing that had worn her baby's face was standing now. It was taller, its limbs stretching unnaturally long. Its eyes glowed faintly milky white. The tiny figure that had just crawled from her body reached toward it, whimpering softly. The taller creature bent down and lifted it, cradling it with care. Then, in one smooth motion, it pressed its mouth to the newborn's chest. A slurping sound filled the air as it began to drink. Mira gagged. Her mind screamed for her to look away, but she could not. The creature drank until the tiny body went limp. Then it dropped the husk to the floor. The smell of spoiled milk grew stronger, choking her. The lights flickered again. In their brief flashes, Mira saw movement on the walls. Tiny faces, dozens of them, pressing out from inside the wallpaper. Infants, their eyes hollow, their mouths moving silently in rhythm. She pressed her palms over her ears, but the voices filled her head. "You promised us life. You promised us milk." The house shook as the voices grew louder. The refrigerator door burst open. Every bottle inside shattered, spilling milk across the floor. It spread like a living thing, climbing up the walls, dripping from the ceiling. The milk was no longer white. It was gray, thick, and reeking of decay. Mira tried to stand but fell again, her strength gone. Her skin was pale, her lips trembling. From her wound, the last of the milk seeped out, swirling with blood. The taller creature approached her now, stepping soundlessly through the puddles. Each step left faint handprints behind, as though invisible children were crawling in its wake. It knelt beside her, staring with those colorless eyes. "Do not cry, mother," it said softly. "You gave us life. Now give us the rest." Mira shook her head weakly. "Please, take whatever you want. Just leave her. Leave my baby." The creature's smile widened. It reached out and stroked her cheek with a cold, damp hand. "There was never a baby," it whispered. "Only us." Myra's world tilted. Her mind screamed. Images flooded her vision. Moments she had believed were real. Cries at night. The soft weight of her child in her arms. But in each memory, the face was blurred. The warmth was wrong. The smell always sour. Had she ever truly seen her daughter? Had she ever truly heard her breathe? The realization hit her like a knife. She screamed again, this time not from pain but from horror beyond words. The creature pressed its forehead to hers. Its skin was freezing cold, yet the air around them burned. Then it began to hum. Lullaby. Her lullaby. The one she used to sing to her unborn child when she could not sleep. The melody filled the room. The walls stopped shaking. The whispers faded. Myra's breathing slowed. Her eyelids fluttered. Her body began to relax as if she were falling into sleep. The creature's mouth moved close to her ear. "We are full now," it whispered. "Rest." The room fell silent. Outside, dawn was beginning to break. Light spilled through the cracks in the curtains. The house stood still again, peaceful, almost serene. But on the floor where Myra's body lay, something moved. Tiny, pale shapes, no larger than rats, crawled from beneath her. Each one carried a drop of milk on its tongue. They scurried across the floor toward the crib. Inside the crib was not a baby. Only a hollow shape, stitched together from old cloth and human hair. The tiny creatures climbed inside, disappearing one by one. Their whispers faded to silence. Then, for a moment, nothing moved. Until the bundle in the crib took a deep, slow breath. The air grew cold again. The shadow on the wall began to shift, long and thin, stretching toward the door. And from somewhere deep within the house, a faint sound echoed. The soft cry of a newborn. But this time it did not sound human. It was wet, echoing, and hungry. And as the first sunlight touched the windowsill, the refrigerator door creaked open once more. Inside, fresh bottles of milk waited, filled, sealed, and labeled with a trembling hand. Each bore the same words scrawled in faint red ink. Ours. The house looked normal in daylight, almost peaceful. Birds sang outside. The morning wind rattled the birch trees, and sunlight shimmered across the kitchen floor where milk had spilled hours before. Yet the silence inside was heavier than ever. Myra's body was gone. The floor was clean, too clean, as if someone had scrubbed away every trace of what had happened. Only the faint scent of sour milk lingered in the air. And in the crib, the bundle of cloth and hair now breathed softly. Each inhale came with a faint gurgle. Each exhale smelled faintly of decay. By noon, a knock came at the door. A neighbor, Mrs. Kellen, stood outside holding a basket of bread. She had come every few days to check on Mira since her husband worked away from home. When no one answered, she frowned. Through the window, she could see the curtains moving slightly, though there was no wind. "Hello, Mira," she called softly. No response. She tried the handle. The door creaked open. The smell hit her immediately. Spoiled milk mixed with something metallic, something wrong. Her stomach turned, but concern pushed her forward. "Mira," she repeated, stepping inside. The air was strangely cold for midday. The hallway was empty, except for the faint sound of humming coming from the nursery. It was a tune she recognized. Myra's lullaby. Mrs. Kellen's lips trembled. "Sweetheart, are you here?" She reached the nursery door and froze. The crib was in the middle of the room. The curtains swayed even though the windows were closed. And from inside the crib came slow, steady breathing. Mrs. Kellen took a cautious step forward. The air smelled thicker here, like milk that had been left too long in the sun. She reached out a shaking hand and pulled back the edge of the blanket. At first she sighed in relief. Baby. Sleeping. Tiny, pale, peaceful. But as she looked closer, something felt wrong. The skin was too smooth like wax. The eyelids fluttered even though the baby was not breathing. Then the mouth twitched. The lips parted slightly, and a small drop of white liquid trickled out. Mrs. Kellen gasped. The baby's eyes opened, milky white without pupils. A smile spread across its face. Wide, slow, unnatural. Mrs. Kellen stumbled back, her basket falling to the floor. The bread rolled away, forgotten. From the crib came a soft, wet giggle. Then another sound. A whisper. "Mama." The voice was too low. Too wrong. It was not the voice of an infant. It was older, heavier. Mrs. Kellen turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind her. The humming began again. Faster now, the same lullaby looping over and over. She banged on the door, screaming, but her voice was swallowed by the sound. The air around her shimmered. The wallpaper pulsed, faintly at first, then visibly. Shapes pushing from beneath. Tiny faces pressed outward, mouths opening, whispering soundlessly. Milk began to drip from the ceiling, thick and warm, splattering across her shoulders. Her screams turned to sobs as the crib creaked behind her. The baby, or whatever it was sitting up now. It reached its small hand toward her, palm open, skin dripping with a white sheen. Mrs. Kellen shook her head violently. No. No, this is not real, you. The baby's arms stretched. Literally stretched. Long gray slick. It grabbed her wrist. The touch was cold and soft, like touching the inside of a fish. She tried to pull away, but the strength behind that tiny hand was impossible. The thing climbed from the crib, its limbs bending backward as it moved. When it stood on the floor, it was nearly the size of a toddler. But its proportions were wrong. Too thin, too elongated. The face remained that of an infant, but the mouth was wider now. Its jaw clicked with each breath. It tilted its head at her. "Mother is gone," it said softly. "You will do." She screamed again, wrenching free and darting toward the window. Her hand grabbed the curtain. She yanked hard. The glass shattered outward, shards flying into the yard. She climbed halfway through when something yanked her back. Hard. Her body hit the floor with a crack. She tried to crawl, but pale hands, dozens of them, slid from under the crib, grabbing her legs. Tiny hands. Children's hands. Each one slick with milk. They pulled. She clawed at the floor, her nails tearing. Her last sight before being dragged under was the baby's face. Smiling, dripping, whispering. "Hungry." Then she was gone. The room fell quiet again. The crib stood still. From under it, the milk spread slowly outward across the floorboards, forming words as it dried. "We are born again." By evening, the sun set behind the woods. The house was dark once more. The refrigerator hummed softly, filled again with bottles of milk, each labeled in shaky handwriting. Ours. That night, the front door creaked open. Myra's husband, Daniel, stepped inside. He looked exhausted. His clothes stained with dust from the long drive. "Honey," he called, dropping his bag. "I got home early." No answer. He frowned. The air smelled strange. He followed the faint scent of milk to the nursery. "Mira." When he pushed the door open, he froze. The crib stood in the center of the room. Baby lay inside, sleeping soundly. Daniel's face softened instantly. He smiled, relief washing over him. "Hey there, my little girl," he whispered, walking closer. The baby stirred. She opened her eyes. They were bright blue, just like his. Perfect. He leaned down, brushing her tiny hand with his finger. It was cool to the touch, but he assumed the room was just cold. "Where's your mom, huh?" he murmured, lifting her carefully. As he did, a faint sound came from the floorboards, like something shifting underneath. He froze, then laughed nervously. "Old house," he muttered. He turned toward the door, carrying the baby. That was when he saw it. The stain on the wall near the crib. It looked like someone had written there in dried milk. A single word. "Feed." Daniel's smile faded. He turned toward the baby again. She was staring at him now. Not like a baby. Her eyes were too still, too knowing. He frowned, gently rocking her. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" The baby blinked slowly. Then her mouth opened. A thin stream of white ran down her chin. First he thought it was milk. Then the smell hit him, sour, rotten, old. The baby's lips trembled. Her voice came out hoarse, ancient. "Hungry, father." Daniel froze. He stared at her, his blood running cold. What did you just say?" Her face twitched. Her mouth opened wider, too wide. Her jaw cracked as it stretched, revealing rows of tiny gray teeth. The sound of sucking filled the air again, echoing in the walls. Daniel staggered back, dropping her. The baby hit the floor and immediately began to crawl, fast, spider-like, toward him. He backed into the hallway, heart hammering. "Mira, where are you?" The house groaned. From the kitchen came the sound of bottles clinking. The refrigerator door swung open. Milk spilled across the tiles, spreading toward his feet. The baby stopped crawling. She stood. Her body elongated, limbs stretching, bones cracking. The sound was unbearable, wet and sharp. Her head tilted, her face melting into something smooth and featureless. Only the mouth remained. Wait, smiling. "Feed us, Father," it whispered. The air filled with the sound of crying. Dozens of babies crying in unison. The walls rippled. The floorboards buckled. Daniel stumbled backward, his shoes sinking into the spreading milk. Hands reached up from it, tiny, pale, gripping his ankles. He screamed, trying to shake free. The milk rose higher, thicker, almost alive. He could feel it pulling him down, dragging him toward the nursery. He fell forward, his hands slamming against the wooden floor. And in that moment he saw it. The reflection on the glossy surface. Dozens of small, milky figures crawling out from the crib, their eyes glowing faintly. Each one carried a bottle, each bottle filled to the brim. They surrounded him silently. He tried to crawl, but one grabbed his arm. Another clutched his neck. Their grip was ice cold. Then came the whisper. A chorus, low and trembling, from every corner of the room. "She fed us. Now you will too." Daniel gasped as the first small hand pressed against his mouth. Then another. And another. The smell of milk filled his lungs as the world went white. The next morning the house was silent again. The sun rose. Birds sang. Inside the nursery, the crib stood untouched. A baby lay inside, peaceful, smiling in her sleep. Beside her were 2 bottles of fresh milk, both labeled carefully in red ink. One read, "Mother," the other, "Father." And from somewhere deep in the walls, faint voices whispered in contentment, "Now we are full." By the next sunrise, the village awoke to quiet confusion. Smoke curled gently from Myra's chimney, though no one had seen her or Daniel since the day before. The mailman noticed the front door slightly ajar and the curtains drawn tight, as if the house itself wished not to be seen. Inside everything was still. The kitchen table was neatly set with 2 empty cups. On the counter a loaf of bread, moldy, untouched. And on the floor near the refrigerator, faint white footprints led toward the nursery. When the police arrived later that morning, they entered cautiously. The house smelled faintly sweet, faintly sour, like milk that had lingered too long in the air. They found the crib first. Inside, a baby slept soundly, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. Her skin was pale but warm. She breathed quietly, peacefully, unaware of the men standing over her. A bottle sat beside her, filled with milk so fresh it was still warm, labeled neatly in red ink. "Ours." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. One of them lifted the blanket slightly, revealing a bracelet on the child's wrist. Tiny, engraved with her name. Lila. It matched the missing persons report. Mira and Daniel's baby. Live. The men whispered thanks under their breath. They searched the house for the parents but found nothing. No blood, no signs of a struggle. Only the lingering smell of milk, soaked into the walls. When the coroner's team arrived, they wrapped the baby gently and carried her outside. The moment sunlight touched her face, she stirred. Her eyelids fluttered open. Blue eyes blinked up at the sky. She smiled. Tiny, perfect smile. And for a heartbeat, the men swore they heard a sound behind them. Soft, wet, rhythmic. The gentle noise of a baby's bottle being sucked empty. When they turned, the house stood still, silent, sunlight washing through its windows. Later, neighbors would whisper that the house had changed. The milk-white paint began to peel, revealing strange stains underneath. Sometimes at night, a light flickered in the nursery window, always at 2 in the morning. And sometimes those walking home late would pause, hearing a lullaby drifting faintly from within. A woman's voice. Weep. Singing words no one could quite understand. Years passed. The house stood empty. No one dared move in, though realtors came often and always left quickly. The baby, Lila, grew up far away, adopted by distant relatives, never speaking of her first home. But every night, as she drifted to sleep, she would dream of warmth against her skin, of milk, of whispering voices calling her name from the dark. And sometimes, just before dawn, she would wake to find her lips wet, the faint taste of sweetness lingering on her tongue. In the corner of her room, the baby monitor she no longer used would crackle to life. Static. Then the faintest of whispers. Feed us, Lila. Her heart would race. She would stare into the dark, trembling beneath her blankets. And somewhere deep inside she would feel it. The same cold hunger that once filled her mother's house. Waiting, growing, patient, for milk, for warmth, for a mother once more. And as the morning light crept through her window, the whisper would fade into the soft hum of silence, leaving only the faint scent of spoiled milk in the air. Then,